The wait is finally over, guys. Utopia is out, and it might be Travis Scott's most accessible album ever. Let's dive right into it, guys. The first thing I want to talk about on this album, guys, is the production. I mean, wow, guys, the production is absolutely stellar. It's a standout, and it's my favorite part of the album. I mean, you have to listen to the lyrics and the artist, but I've always felt that if it's a well-produced album, the rest of the other things will just fall into place. Sonically, it's absolutely incredible. I mean, it sounds like it's music that's 10 years away from now. That's how good the production is. I mean, you have dark electronic synths mixed in with trap sounds. There's guitar strings. You have a little bit of dance hall. It's just beautifully, beautifully crafted. And some of the tracks are even produced by Travis himself. He said with this album, he basically wanted to be more hands-on when it came to the production. And it definitely has his signature style sprinkled all over the album. And I mean, if you have a production team with the likes of Pharrell, Hit Boy, Boy Wonder, The Alchemist, and on top of that, you throw in one half of Daft Punk. I mean, guys, you cannot go wrong if you have a production team like that. That's the one thing that stands out for me in the album, and you have to listen to this album as loud as possible, definitely with headphones on. The second thing I want to talk about, guys, is this is Travis's best performance on the album vocally. I mean, I always feel that his weakest part of all these albums was his performance. I mean, his lyrics and all that sometimes can feel washed out or can be lost in all the auto tune that he uses. But on this album, guys, he's definitely rapping his ass off, guys. And I highly appreciate that because if you listen to the album, it actually feels like his album. And most of his other albums, he always got overshadowed by the features. And whoo, there's a lot of features on this album. But luckily, he holds his own on this album, guys. And let me break down my final thoughts on the album, guys, of how I think the album has been structured. The first half of the album, it's made up of 19 tracks. So the first half of the album, it feels like traditional Travis, the sounds that his signature sounds that has made him famous and the type of sounds that all the fans love. That is a brilliant that first half of the album. But where I feel he kind of shines on this album is in the second half of the album where he's a little bit more experimental, he's doing things that I haven't heard from him since Rodeo, and even like Birds in a Trap, Sing McKnight, all those type of albums. I feel like Astroworld definitely solidified his sound, but here he's more experimental in his sound, and I certainly love that about this album. 5 years between albums is definitely a long time, guys. I mean, fans were waiting, all the controversy that came out at the concert with Travis, and a lot of fans were wondering, are we going to get that same Travis Scott when this album comes out? Because he's been through such a lot in his personal life. But he definitely took his time with this project, and I can easily and honestly say that to wait 5 years for this album, it's definitely worth it. It feels like the wait has been worth it because, I mean, delivering something like this might be album of the year material. That's how good this album is. It's definitely his most consistent album. It's an album that you can sit through from the first track all the way up until track 19. I feel like most of his other projects, there was points in the album which just took a little bit of a dive it was worthy of a skip, and there's not really a skip on this album. That's why I feel like it's his most consistent and cohesive project that he's ever produced, which is saying a lot because sometimes his albums can feel a little overwhelming if you listen to it. It's not accessible. It's not something that I can easily recommend to anybody and be like, you guys need to listen to this album. In a year where hip hop hasn't delivered anything special, I feel like this album is definitely a standout, and it's a moment that hip hop needed this year. It feels like an event. It's massive. He always goes in on his production, and he delivered a movie as well, which is called Circus Maximus. I haven't watched it yet. It only came out in select theaters, but I'd love to see what he conjured up with that movie. And I mean, he gave us a glimpse that he's working with A24 when it came to the movie, so I'm interested to see how that looks. I saw a trailer. It was just a short trailer, but it really looked interesting, guys. I'm genuinely happy with this album, guys. I mean, I absolutely loved Astroworld. I still love Astroworld. It's one of my favorite albums, and there's always the pressure was on for him to deliver. Was definitely on, and I think he managed. He managed to do that, guys. I mean, he managed to deliver on a hip hop album, what everybody wanted, and he also does some things on this album that's also genre bending. So it's not only just a hip hop album. There's a lot of stuff on here for everybody, and I feel like everybody can enjoy this album. Not only if you are a fan of Travis, but if it's your introduction to Travis's music, I think this is the best place to start because it is most consistent and cohesive project. The standout tracks for me in the album definitely has to be Meltdown featuring Drizzy Drake. Drizzy Drake delivers one of his most menacing verses in a long time. He goes in on Pharrell and Pusha T, and I feel like that beef is over. He shouldn't have gone in, and I feel like that's probably going to be the most talked about thing on the album because of the fan base that Drake has. People are going to point that moment out and talk about it a lot, which is unfair because it takes away a lot from Travis's performance on this album. Number two definitely has to be Telekinesis. Wow. Telekinesis is absolutely amazing, guys. It features Future. It features, I don't know, guys, but SZA is a one in a generation talent. She absolutely glides over this track, and she takes the track from just being an okay Travis Scott song to one of the best songs on the album. It's stellar, stellar. The production on this is stellar. I even think that this could have been one of the album's singles. I hope it was one of the singles. And those are the two tracks for me at this moment that stand out the most. I'll have to give the rest of the album. I'll still have to give it a spin again, guys, to decide where I land on certain tracks. But immediately after my first listen, those are the two tracks that stand out for me, and they are absolutely, absolutely stellar. Me wrapping up this album, guys, I can easily say it's his best album, and not because of it took 5 years and I'm happy that Travis Scott is back. It took 5 years for him to perfect his craft and deliver something cohesive, which he's never done before. Because I mean, he's always been dropping singles and albums every year, but this time around, he definitely took his time. And when you listen to the album, it's definitely there. I mean, it's also the one downside about the album is the fact that it has 19 tracks and it clocks in around 73 minutes. So for the average listener, it will be a lot to digest. I mean, an album that's 73 minutes is not an easy listen. But I can almost guarantee you guys, if you listen to this and you stick with it and you invest in it, you'll be listening to one of the year's best albums. That's it for me, guys. That's Travis Scott, Utopia. I'm happy with this album. I'm definitely happy, guys. You guys can let me know what you think about this one. Are you guys fans of Travis? If you are not, Did you take time to listen to the album? What do you think? That's just some of my thoughts on the album, guys, and I'll definitely go back and give it another spin. That's it for me, guys. I will definitely catch you on the next one.